we have Mr. Ernie Mellor, president of the Memphis Restaurant Association. Mr. Mellor will be providing a presentation on retrofitting spaces to ensure social distancing and other safety precautions. So without further ado, Mr. Mellor.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Thank you, Beverly Robertson from the Chamber for putting this together. I was privileged to sit on a subcommittee of the Governor's Economic Recovery Group in formulating how to reopen restaurants when the time comes. We just want to know that it's our #1 priority is health and safety. The second priority that's right behind that is getting us back to work again. I've got a few economic numbers, I believe. There you go. These are state numbers. I do have some county numbers as well. We've had through the month of March, there were 87,000 restaurant employees who filed for unemployment. That's about 21% of the overall unemployment claims through April 18th. There are 49,000 hospitality workers in Shelby County. 37,000 of those are restaurant workers. And about 1/3 of all of Shelby County's unemployment claims come from the hospitality industry. So I think it's very important that we learn all that. These are state numbers in front of us. The highlighted deal at the top shows the 87,000 that are roughly 29% of the workforce that have filed unemployment. Needless to say, the restaurant and hotel and accommodation or hospitality industry as a whole has gotten hit really hard. We appreciate everyone patronizing us with curbside and pickup and deliveries, and that certainly has helped keep the blood flowing, but at a slow rate. If you go back a slide, Frankie, the net sales lost by Tennessee restaurants in the month of March was over $408 million, and that equates to a $5 billion decline in the GDP for the year of 2020. It's very important that everyone understand that the hospitality industry in the state of Tennessee is the second highest tax revenuing source for the state. In Shelby County, we don't rank quite that high because you've got FedEx and International Paper and several of the other large companies that we're so glad to have. But we are in the 5th or 6th slot in Shelby County. So we are the ones that are putting money in the government's hand to keep everybody moving. And it's extremely important that we get going as quickly as possible and in a safe manner. Frankie, I'll go to the restaurant guidelines, I think is the next cue. Social distancing, as we all know, will play an important part of our life in general for the next several months to come. No different in the restaurant industry. The guidelines that I have here on these screens are the recommendations from the governor. They are a little different from what Mayor Harris and Mayor Strickland came out with yesterday, and I've got those, and I'll go through those differences. The sanitation, sanitizing restaurants is very important, and there are guidelines for us to clean our restaurants and keep them sanitized on a regular basis throughout the day, particularly on highly touched surfaces such as door handles, doorknobs, keypads. We're recommending disposable menus, so those menus are not transferred from one patron to the next. The face coverings of the masks and gloves worn by employees, that is a recommendation from the governor. The difference here between the governor's recommendation and the mayor's, for the way I understand it, is they're wanting front of the house and back of the house employees that are either dealing with food or directly with the patrons to wear masks. And I will make a note here that the masks that we use should not be the N95 or the medical variety. healthcare workers need those more than we do. So we're looking for either cloth masks or a different rated mask to wear. One of the big items, or actually two items back to back, are that we quiz or question our employees as they come in. Temperatures are recommended to be taken. You know, do you feel sick? Have you had a fever? Have you been in touch with in contact with anybody that has had the COVID-19 and those type things? And if an employee is sick or has been in close contact with any of these people, immediately send them home. Serve Safe is an organization that gives us a lot of training. They have offered 2 COVID-19 classes that are actually free through the end of the month, and I think they'll probably extend that through May. So we are asking that each restaurant employee take 20 minutes to take these 2 online sessions to brief them on the COVID-19 protocol. And we'll go to the next guideline. The state's recommended 50% seating capacity. That's the same with Shelby County and Memphis. That would go in for 2 weeks, assuming that we still stay open. The governor recommends going to 75%. However, Mayor Harris and Mayor Strickland have limited that to 50%. The state would then move after the following 2 weeks, go to 100%. But at that point in phase 3 of the county guidelines, we'll go to 75%. Just to be blunt about it, restaurants don't break even unless they're in that 70% capacity. In other words, if they don't fill their seats up to 70%, they're not making any money. You know, we've got, I'm guessing, 2 more weeks or something close to that before we reopen. And then we're looking at another month at 50%. And so you're going to see some fallout. And I do respect both of our mayors and all of our mayors in the county for following the health department's guidelines on the 14 days of declines, and I totally respect that. But at the same time, we need to get open, and we're ready to get open, but we're ready to do it safely. The social distancing, your tables will be at least 6 feet apart, no more than 6 guests in a group. There should be markings on the floor to keep you from in waiting lines to keep you from getting too close. The state has recommended bar areas remain closed. I don't think that's a recommendation here in the county. The idea there would be to either remove chairs in the bars or tape them off. One thing that you'll see a lot of as the restaurants do reopen is that they'll have tables marked reserved for social distancing, meaning you're not going to sit at that particular table. So it's kind of hard to actually pull the tables out. There's really, most restaurants don't have a place to store those things. So you'll see markings on the tables not to sit there. The one that's kind of funny, but it has to be done, is we have to screen our customers, and we're asking them the same questions that we asked our employees. Have you been in close contact with someone with COVID-19? Are you experiencing a cough, shortness of breath, or sore throat? Have you had a fever in the last 48? And this can actually be done with a placard or signage. I would recommend it on the front door and then in another place as they walk in. The main thing is that we hope that the public uses their common sense, and if you're sick, stay at home, just as we would have our employees stay at home. Frankie, next business process adaptions. The governor's asking that we place hand sanitizer stations in the lobbies or near the cash register in our restaurants. The bathrooms were another question. If you're in the bathroom, use the soap to wash your hands. We'll be sanitizing both the front of the house, all the contact surfaces that you see there, the door handles, screens, phones, ink pens, keyboards, roughly every 2 hours. It's recommended that we use disposable menus. If you go into a restaurant and they don't have disposable menus, rest assured that they are wiping those down after each use. One thing I want this group to understand is the use of gloves. Exam gloves are made for 2 reasons. They're either, number 1, to keep my hands clean from whatever I touch, or number 2, they're to keep my clean hands clean and I'm touching your food and making sure that your food is safe. There's no in between. So we're recommending that the bus boys or the folks that are bussing the dirty tables, they can stay in those same gloves all day, but they're only touching dirty dishes. The folks that are bringing plates out or whatnot, or resetting tables, those gloves will be changed very frequently. There will be no self-serve drink refills. So like if you went into a fast serve restaurant and you got a Coke, you go back up, they're going to ask you to throw that cup away and they'll give you another cup and fill it up for you. So you'll basically have an attendant at that drink station. No buffet type setups. If there is a buffet type, it will be where the restaurant has servers behind that food, and they'll serve it more cafeteria style. We're recommending that where you're not using disposable cutlery, that the cutlery is wrapped in napkins, and that's done in a clean area with clean hands and clean gloves. And no community condiments. We'll phase back into that, but those will be the items that'll be wiped down each time. I've got a couple other talking points that are not on the guidelines, and that is the supply chain. The supply chain is going to be really tough, particularly if everybody opened at one time. In other words, our suppliers are already seeing a 15-year high on beef prices. Pork and chicken, a lot of those processed plants have been shut down or are closed momentarily or for a short period of time. And so we'll have trouble getting the product in that we need to serve you food. So if you go into some of your favorite restaurants and they've either had to substitute something in for a menu item or not offer that menu item at all, please be noteful that it is a supply chain issue. It's very important. We've got about 2,000 restaurants in Memphis and Shelby County. Only about 250 of those are members of our association. We do a great job of communicating with Kevin Kane's group at Memphis Tourism, with the Chamber, and many other organizations here locally. But we want as many restaurateurs to be members of the Restaurant Association as possible. And just right now, MemphisRestaurants.com, we are offering a 3-month free membership. The annual membership is only $250, and it is it's a great thing. We advocate for you. We doing what we can during this crazy time to help us survive and ultimately get reopened. With that, again, thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mellor, and we'll have a few minutes reserved for Q&A at this time. I know there are already some questions coming through. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, just click that raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, and I will unmute you. So first off, we had a question from Miss Kat Gordon. Kat, are you available and ready for your question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, Ernie, I was just wondering on the temperature checks, and both for staff and for the COVID screening for customers. I guess specifically on the customers, actually, I was wondering if we need to actively ask those questions, and if so, do they need to be documented somewhere, or is it more like honor code, post a notice and, you know, it's up to the customer to please practice good judgment. If we are expected to document any answers, are there rules around privacy that we should know about?
Well, your last comment is a big one, the Privacy Act, which applies through the HIPAA Act. So Kat, no, the idea, you don't have to take their temperature. It is suggested. You don't physically or verbally have to ask those questions that are up here. Again, you can put a placard up. I would put it on the front door as well as somewhere just inside your shop. And no, you do not have to document them. Again, we hope that the public will use their better judgment of when to go out and when not to go out, particularly if they've been around somebody or they've got symptoms. The big thing is that that we do these checks with our employees on a daily basis to make sure that that everybody's healthy and not working with that may compromise the rest of the team. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks, Ernie.
Thanks, Kat, and I think I can speak for everybody in saying that we are missing Muddy's cupcakes and can't wait to get back. So thank you for being here. Great. So next up, it looks like we have a question from Mr. Jeff Westbay. Mr. Westbay, I am unmuting you now. Mr. Westbay. Okay, it looks like we were having some issues, but Mr. Westbay's question was, we are primarily a restaurant, but we do have 13 bowling lanes. Can we allow bowling if we only issue every other lane?
That's a social distancing deal. I would say that that doesn't fall under me, but I would think that if you're sanitizing balls and sanitizing, everything in those lanes possible, and you're skipping one lane or two lanes, that, but again, that falls back to somebody else. I would think you could, but again, that falls back to somebody else.
Got it. Thank you. And we had another question in the Q&A from an anonymous attendee regarding bus staff. So wouldn't bus staff need to change out gloves regularly since they're getting germs on their gloves each time and they're removing customer dishes?
If the busser is doing multiple tasks, then he needs to change his gloves and wash his hands on a regular basis. In other words, once he busses one table and comes out, if he takes his gloves off to wash dishes, then he's got to wash his hands, re-glove up before he goes and busses again. If you have a dedicated busser that is doing nothing but removing dirty dishes from the tables, bringing them to the kitchens, he can stay gloved up. It's recommended that he changes his gloves every hour, he or she. But that would be a job specific deal where he's not doing anything else but moving dirty dishes from the tables to bringing them to the kitchen, and then another staff person will clean and sanitize the table.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mellor. That looks like the conclusion of our Q&A period at this time. Thank you so much for the presentation and for being here with us today.
Thank you.